89% of you have more healthy and functional brain tissue than I do. I'm experiencing brain shrinkage at a rapid rate due to multiple sclerosis. I've had it for 32 years. But in my last video, I explained a little bit about my experience living this way. And I promised that I would talk about how MS is a family disease. I have two particular things that make me understand how this disease works. And one of them is that my mom had it when I was born. She did not get her diagnosis until 1971. She had gone through many weird things that made her family call her lazy and crazy, which she was neither. In 1971, she went to the doctor. Her leg was completely not working. She was terrified. And her doctor finally decided to put her through some of the torture tests they used to use to diagnose MS, like myelograms, and also kept her in the hospital for a week to do that, and then at the end told her that they were pretty certain that she had multiple sclerosis. Question 1, is it going to kill me? They said no. Question 2, what should I do? And they said, go home and expect the unexpected and do what you can until you can't do it anymore. And the third question that she asked was, what can you do for me? And they said, nothing. There was no treatment at the time. So we had in my family a mother who had constantly declining multiple sclerosis from that point. I say it's a family illness because it affects everyone in your family. Now, I want to specify something here. When I say it's a family illness, I mean untreated multiple sclerosis. The treatments that are available today completely change the experience of having this illness. And so I'm not being paid by anybody to tell you that I am a huge advocate for being on a disease-modifying therapy as early as possible in the disease process. There's a good chance that the first 6 years that I had MS, I was not on a disease-modifying therapy, and a lot of the damage that occurred at that point was to a much healthier brain. And as my brain has naturally proceeded to shrink like all brains do as we age, I became it found that damage that was underlying, that was done when I had more brains sort of cover it up. And that's really the story of multiple sclerosis. Your initial exacerbations may not be symptomatic, but they are happening, and they do continue to happen. There's really no such thing as a remission. There's only a rewiring of the brain that occurs. The disease process is still active, and the earlier you are in MS, the faster the damage that you can't see is accruing. But it'll show up later, and it'll shrink your brain. So I want to introduce you to someone who is very important, well, to two people who are very important in my life. This is my mother and my father. And I won't be offended if you tell me I look just like her, because I do. And my dad's a handsome guy in this picture. He always had some sort of weird mustache or something. Okay, my mom passed in 2010. She never had any advantages of the kinds of treatments that we have now. She was far too far gone to be able to get any benefit from them. This changed our family dynamic entirely. The best model I can use is the alcoholic model. People fall into different roles as the person who has the issue starts to relegate those roles or have to give them up. Your children in untreated MS become your little gophers and your legs. Your caretaking partner becomes literally the person who has to help you with your most personal care issues. This changes the dynamic of a marriage. This changes the dynamic of a childhood. From the point that I was 7 years old, I was my mom's legs. And from the point that I was 12 years old, I was doing all of the housekeeping chores in the house. That's a strange childhood. And it's a sad childhood, but I am not bitter about this. I understand she did nothing to cause this and could have done nothing to help herself with it. So I know that I had to take on these roles, but I also know that I have not needed anyone in my life to take on those roles, aside from a husband who will occasionally get on a stepladder for me, because that ain't happening anymore. And just little things. I mean, carrying heavy things, although I'm much better at all of that now. My main point is this: you don't ever have to get as sick as my mom was, and you don't ever have to get a shrunken brain like mine, or a brain as shrunken as mine, if you get on a disease-modifying therapy as soon as possible. So if you're newly diagnosed and you are watching this and you are considering trying to reinvent the wheel, I want to assure you that every prayer has already been prayed, every snake oil solution, including getting stung by bees on purpose, has been tried. You're not going to find the magic bullet. You're not going to reinvent the wheel or do something that someone 200 years ago didn't try. If anything else worked, we'd all be doing it. And I think it's very important that you understand that. I've seen this disease from untreated and awful to treated and manageable. Sure, my brain is shrinking, but a lot of that is probably because of unhealthy lifestyle changes or choices that I was making. I don't want to edit these videos too heavily because I do want you to see how I stumble over my words, sometimes choose the wrong words. But on the note of saying that there are hardly people fortunate enough to have as much direct experience with this illness as I do, because it has affected my entire life. I will be talking more about that. I will be talking more about ways I've helped myself and how important and different my experience of this illness has been because of the 3 disease-modifying therapies that I have gone on since 1993, 96. I'm really bad with dates, but I started on Copaxone. So we'll go from there. And I want to encourage you not to let this disease affect your family. And going untreated in this day and age, I'm going to say this frankly, is a selfish and self-centered decision, because you will put the burden of what you lose onto other members of your family. That's a happy note to end this on. I will add my traditional disclaimer that I am not a medical professional. I speak only from my personal experience. Everyone's MS is different, and if you hear something from an MS specialist specifically, that contradicts what I'm telling you, they're right and I'm wrong, unless they're telling you to wait to get on a disease-modifying therapy. I think you need to see a different MS specialist if your MS specialist is a waiter, because waiting is accruing brain damage. Okay, that's all I'm going to say for today. Thank you for watching, if you have. And I hope you're living your best life with multiple sclerosis.